Here's a question from a viewer who also happens to be a therapist. It's a common question that I think all therapists face, or dare I say, must face, in their progress to becoming a great therapist. It's a question that focuses on that intersection between self and therapist. Before we read the question, let me say something. When you are here in that space where you explore the significance of where self meets therapist, you are making huge progress in both your personal and professional growth. It takes time and courage to do this deep dive. The tendency is to compartmentalize aspects of self. But this profession does not allow that level of comfort. So let's get started. The question reads: I feel uncomfortable when a client comes to me stating, I am not making progress like I thought I should be. In that moment, I immediately feel guilty and go into stress-fueled problem solving. I have been practicing for 3 years, and within the past 2 years, I notice that I have been basing my worth as a therapist off of the client's progress. This makes me have my own agenda because I want them to have therapeutic success faster. The response: thank you so much for your honesty and courage in naming what's coming up for you. The fact that you want to address this issue says a lot about your integrity and desire to help your clients. And your insight to recognize that these issues is connected says a lot about your deep level of insight. The desire to see consistent client success for your own benefit of gaining evidence of being a good therapist is something most therapists face, especially in the early years. And yet, not all therapists take the time to slow down and explore it. That reflection alone tells me you're on the right path of becoming an amazing therapist. Since I know you have already watched our video entitled, Therapy Client is Not Making Progress, you have already considered the concept of holding space for the client. That's step 1. Like Client Progress 101. Client Progress 201 is a bit deeper and more difficult because it involves not only the psychology of the client, but the psychology of the therapist as well. Because as therapists, we know we are looking at more than just what we are doing or not doing, but why. What's going on for me, the therapist? What insecurities are triggered and why? What underlying stuff informs my decision-making? When a client says, I'm not making progress like I thought I would, what happens for the therapist? If this statement stirs up feelings of inadequacy or failure, it may be time to do some of our own work with our own therapist. Why? Because we just made our client's therapy about us. The client made a statement that could have had to do with 1,000 other things. The client is anxious. The client has harsh expectations of performance. The client has a critical inner voice. The client is very tired of feeling this way and just wants relief fast. The client struggles with recognizing his own progress, and so on. But rather than getting curious about what the client meant by said statement, we took it personal. Rather than exploring what progress looks like for the client, we jumped to the whole imposter syndrome bit. Without due process, we basically blamed ourselves for the client's perceived lack of progress. And that, my friends, is our stuff. Many of us recognize these inadequacy moments as imposter syndrome, that fear that we're not good enough, that we're somehow faking it, and that at any moment someone, often ourselves, will discover we're not actually equipped for the work. It's such a common experience, especially in the early years of practice. And for many of us, it shows up again and again in new ways as we grow. But here's the difficult question. What if imposter syndrome isn't just some silly notion of inadequacy? What if imposter syndrome is also an invitation for exploration? What if it's a nudge to do some healing? Here's the paradox of this work that we do. Helping clients heal doesn't come from us solving their problems or telling them to stop their faulty thinking. If common sense solutions are easy fix platitudes, the things therapists usually default to in times of our own stress, were actually helpful, our profession wouldn't exist. The client's healing journey is complicated, sometimes lengthy, and usually speckled with difficult terrain. Which brings us to the second and yes, deeper layer of the therapeutic paradox. We can only take clients as far as we've been willing to go ourselves. Pause for a moment and let that sink in. We can only take clients as far as we've been willing to go ourselves. This doesn't mean we need to experience exactly the same things our clients have. It means rather that we have been willing to do our own work, whatever that was. Getting to know our wounded child and reparenting him or her, challenging faulty belief systems that were forged during a neglectful or abusive upbringing. Finding out that the common denominator in all of our toxic relationships is found in the mirror. Grieving that unspeakably painful loss, and so forth. The exact what is not the issue. The issue is, have we done our work? As therapists, we know that unfinished work, unprocessed trauma and the like, does not just magically go away. All the denying, distracting, minimizing, ignoring, and suppressing will not make it disappear. It remains. It festers. It grows like emotional cancer to the soul. This information applies to us as much as it does our clients. Not only that, our own healing or lack thereof has a direct impact on our therapy skills and by extension, our clients' success. Let's pause for a moment for a reminder. Not all client success, or lack of success, is the responsibility of the therapist. There are additional factors that vary based on each individual client's unique micro and macro level influences, including family of origin, genetics, culture, socioeconomic status, and environment, among others. Please do not overburden yourself with responsibility that does not belong to you. This video in its entirety will be empowering and possibly even life-changing if you let it. Now that we have put our amount of responsibility in perspective, we know that we are helpers, not the bearers of all outcomes for all people. We can now look more closely at why our own healing can impact client progress. As therapists, we hold both the map and the flashlight. But if there are parts of the terrain we've never explored, places we've avoided because they're too dark, too scary, too painful, our willingness to explore those areas is weak. And what often happens, unconsciously of course, is that we steer clients away from those places. Those very places where healing is found. Not because we don't care, but because we're human. And because, like we just mentioned, it's unconscious. Meaning we don't do it on purpose. We don't even have an awareness that we are doing it. This is just another example of how unhealed trauma shows up in the here and now. For some it's anxiety and unhealthy relationships. For others it's substance abuse. For therapists, it's a limitation of therapeutic success. When we haven't yet explored and made peace with those shadowy parts, and our client's map leads into dark, unfamiliar territory, we might say to the client, let's go this other way instead. A way we know and feel more confident in. And while that impulse is understandable, it can unintentionally limit the client's healing journey. So when a client says, I'm not making the progress I thought I would, and you feel that wave of urgency or guilt rise up, put that information in your back pocket for later and refocus your energy toward the client. Remember to be curious as to why the client has made this statement. If this guilt-based need to perform and produce success is purely internal, and not from a client statement, the process is the same. We must remember, later when it's appropriate, to take that information out of our back pocket and take a good look at it. It might be time to journal or schedule that therapy appointment. Notice what's being activated in you. Ask yourself, why am I making their experience about me? What am I trying to avoid in this moment? Can I stay with my discomfort long enough to get curious instead of reactive? Can I remember another time when I felt this way? Can I take myself back to the first time I ever felt this way? Caution here. If you don't have a large enough window of tolerance to ask yourself these questions, please only ask yourself these questions once you have created a window of tolerance and/or are in the presence of a trauma-informed professional. Progress, your own, or your client's, doesn't always look like forward motion. Sometimes, it looks like stillness, or circling, or sitting in the dim light long enough to let our eyes adjust. So to the original author of the question, thank you again for being brave and having such a strong sense of professional integrity. You're doing the real work here, not just with your clients, but with yourself. And that's amazing. Keep it up. For everyone else, thank you for watching. And if you have your own question, you can post it in the comments, or email us at university@healplaylove.org. Until next time, keep growing and glowing.